The recent rejection by President Obama of the Keystone Pipeline brought memories back to me of a forgotten long ago controversy earlier in the 20th century that involved a number of similar issues. Just how do you balance development and conservation and the various competing interest groups in a way that will hopefully benefit at least most? It's a very difficult and complicated mess. And the controversy I'm talking about happens to be what was known as Hetch Hetchy Valley, which was a gorgeous, gorgeous place that John Muir and others thought was one of the great natural treasures, like a cathedral, that should be preserved from any man-made development. Well, there were many on other sides, like Gifford Pinchot, who was in fact one of the leading supporters of Theodore Roosevelt's conservation efforts, who took a different view. He took the view that we need to dam the water, the river there, so that we can create reservoirs for San Francisco. So that led to a significant controversy and competition of various interest groups over should this be developed, should it not be developed, by who, how. Ultimately, the decision was made to dam it and to provide a safe, reliable water supply for the growing city of San Francisco. Now, how does that apply in the current situation? The current situation is, once again, you've got a variety of competing interest groups, and what's been portrayed as essentially a battle between the environmentalists, the so-called tree huggers, and oil interests, and to some extent Canada, is actually more complicated than that. What's been lost in much of the picture is that many of those who live and work along the proposed pipeline were not at all happy with this potential pipeline going through their land. For example, in Nebraska, many of the ranchers and others who had land and property and cattle, livestock, were concerned about the environmental consequences of a malfunction, of a disaster of some sort, or even terrorism, of this oil being loosed into their neighborhood. In the end, a decision was really made because the United States had reached a point where it really no longer needed it. Unlike needing the water for San Francisco, the United States has reached a point where it has become a major oil producer, and there was no longer the need for that. And Canada is quite capable of being able to take their oil elsewhere, and undoubtedly will. The recently elected Prime Minister was actually rather gracious about it. So what was a big controversy has been resolved, and I kind of have to remember that when Obama took office, this was way down the list of priorities in the fiscal crisis of the time. It only became so as the fiscal crisis began to be resolved.